I would like to officially call to order the Tuesday, November 6, 2018 meeting of the Bolton Conservation Commission. And as always, we will start with a roll call. I am Brian Barabee.
Jeff Bryan.
William Payne.
Kit McNamara.
Rebecca Longo.
Okay, first up this evening, the Bolton Conservation Commission will now hold a public hearing under the provisions of Mass General Law, Chapter 131, Section 40, and under the Bolton Wetland Bylaw, Chapter 233, to consider the abbreviated notice of resource area delineation submitted by Joseph Lynch of the Bolton Department of Public Works regarding the emergency repair work for the diversion of penstock of Mill Brook on Century Mill Road. The public meeting to begin this evening.
Okay. So Joe said he would be here. This was relative to an emergency permit that was issued for some investigative work on the penstock diversion structure associated with the dam on Century Mill Road. So Century Mill Stables is on your right, and then the dam and that water body is on your left. Where the structure was, it was within the right of way. The water was down, so it actually wasn't even within that area, so it wasn't flowing into the penstock diversion area where that's what it is, it's basically an emergency overflow. So they went in because the road had not collapsed, but rather failed due to some undermining or something that went wrong with this structure. Now at this time, they're not looking to do any work. This actually might be Joe Fulton. They're not looking to do any repair work because there wasn't anything necessary at the time. It was more of open the road up, go down, look and see what needed to be done, if there was anything that needed to be done, otherwise just strengthen the roadway from my understanding. So that's what they did. And the reason why they did the abbreviated notice of resource area delineation was just to establish that it was in fact within the right of way, outside of, it's not within wetland resource area, it was just outside of the pond, so it would be within the buffer associated with it.
Didn't they dig out a hole there?
So that,
Thing across it?
yes, so I don't know, I did email that document prior. Joe, do you
Yes.
want to take a step?
Hey.
That's okay.
You're fine.
I answered the police department's phone, and I shouldn't have.
You do a lot of things around here.
I answered their phone call to us, and flooding of all things.
What a surprise.
Oh my God. How you doing?
Good, how are you?
Pretty good.
So for those of you who don't know, this is our DPW director, Joe Lynch.
Should have met most of you guys.
I met you a couple of weeks
Brian,
ago.
Yeah.
not yet.
Yeah.
How you doing?
Nice to meet you.
Great.
So do you want to just give an overview of the work? We're looking through it right
Sure.
now, but I just
Yeah.
explained.
So back in April, we had, there was a triaxle truck making a delivery to the Century Mill Stables. When they left the roadway surface, making the turn to go up the hill, up the gravel driveway and up into the back of the stable, they collapsed through something. When they collapsed through it, they had to get towed out and whatnot. So upon a lot of research between then and the time we actually did the work, did we determine that it's not a culvert, everybody thought it was. It's an ancient part of the dam. It's an emergency penstock. It's an overflow penstock. It's a physical structure of the dam. It took a little bit more than simply going out there and patching it. It took a lot. What we did is we stabilized it immediately, plated it over, remained plated for months. We then came in and, did a much broader evaluation of what it really was. And really it was like any archaeological dig. It's kind of, what do you find, what is it, and how do you deal with it and document it, which is what we ended up having to do. We pursued the emergency certification. In order to do that, under the emergency certification, the requirement was we come in and we take, a formal application. And what I just wanted to use was an ANRAD because it's not in the resource area. It's as the photographs I showed on the map. It's in that structure itself, it's on the opposite side of the road from the open body of water. There's some engagement of bank along the other side of the roadway. There's some BVW on the other side of that roadway. Most of it's protected by an armored wall, masonry stone wall along what would have been the roadway layout at the edge of the pond. But the structure itself, we were able to lower the flashboards in the main penstock where the original mill used to be, going back to the early 1700s. Able to lower the flashboards, drop the pond level by almost 18 inches. We did that literally before a 4-inch rainstorm the following day. And what I was able to demonstrate is we were able to divert that entire flow through the major penstock and keep the emergency spillway unengaged and high and dry. Gave me great confidence to move forward with the rest of the drier weather to go in and actually do the repair in the dry. The rest of the photographs is what we did to accomplish that. Cleaned it all out, dug it all out, got all the stone and debris out of it. Made use of the solid structure that was there, did some structural steel framing onto that solid structure, decked it, reinforced it, cast concrete, and reestablished the flow. Once everything was set, we left that area after we poured the concrete. We left it totally sealed off for 7 days. We then opened it up to parking only for the next 21 days to give us the full 28 days of curing, to give us the full strength of the concrete. And then we just opened up after that to full use again. Caution here is that the rest of that relic on the rest of that property, which is private, is more vulnerable than what we've experienced. There will be an inevitable future failure. Good news is that when, and God forbid it happens, we do know that the emergency penstock, the main sluice through the face of the dam can handle those flows.
Jeez.
So when you say you think it'll fail again, is it this region here?
Say that again?
Down in where it would fail, where it's weak right now that you're talking about?
So it's
back up
heading
this
towards,
way?
so that perspective is looking down Century Mill,
Yeah.
the pond to the right and the
Yes.
stables
Yeah.
to the left and beyond. So that's heading down towards the stable structure itself, but if people...
Say, I think some of the earlier pictures could be better.
You see that white building, for people who know the stables down there?
Yeah.
Yeah.
That white building looks like a big shed, small barn,
Yeah,
but you wonder when you look at it, again, this is archaeologically looking at it, it's got two big stone abutments on either side of that. There's a future failure that I say, when you look up that, it goes right in the direction of that. I bet that's an old wheelhouse to an old water structure.
yeah, I would seem over engineered, right, if it had been stuff.
It's coming from somewhere.
Yeah,
There used to be a pond up on, I think it's Pine Hill, there used to be a pond on Pine Hill back, early 1800s. And there used to be, so there were 3 mills out there, a little bit of history. There was a sawmill.
Pretty good.
The sawmill was right at the dam itself, just downstream from, and the ruins are still out there. You can go there and see all the ruins, it's kind of an interesting place. Just downstream from that, there was a grist mill, run by the same set of penstocks of the principal, and then there was a cider mill, and nobody could really say where the cider mill was. But where that failure is, and I look up, there is a water structure coming down from the direction of that barn. And with that big stone abutment, I bet that's the structure for an old water wheel.
makes sense.
It's dry, that section's dry.
Right, doesn't go back now.
Right.
That makes sense.
What's the water come from?
I think they used to capture it up top there. And again, cider mill didn't take a heck of a lot of power
Yeah.
to turn,
So it pumped it up there.
a crushing mill. What do they call it, mashing mill? Pressing mill,
Press it.
yeah, cider press.
The other thing is DEP didn't issue a number, but we can certainly,
I got you approved pending.
yeah, we can certainly close them.
It's a pretty
Oh, next
impressive
time,
job.
because it's an after the fact. I don't-
Yeah.
I drove by there when the hole was
Right,
open
right,
one
makes
time, and it
more
was-
sense. Yeah,
Looked like a bridge
yeah.
to me.
Yeah, the only approach to that, I mean, in our realm, public works, in public entities for that matter, you'd like to really know what you have up front, put it as a bid package, go out to bid with a known price coming in. none of this was possible. We were dealing with buried treasure. We really didn't know what we had until we got right down into it. And you got that far into it, you had to just keep going and finish it.
Right. If you didn't hear Rebecca earlier, we haven't received a DEP number yet for this. And because the fact that it is an after-the-fact filing, work's already been done, started, it's possible that we'll probably just close tonight and then maybe just vote on it next meeting once we have the DEP file number, we can put all the paperwork together. Because it is, like you said, after the fact, it's been
Already
done already.
I don't think,
But that said, are there any questions regarding the ANRAD? I was gonna say, if you have thoughts, Rebecca, I don't think anybody's here to comment on it tonight. Any initial thoughts? All right, in that case, for right now, they can make the motion that we close the hearing for, the public hearing for Century Middle Road Department of Public Works infrastructure impact on roadway. Yes. Do I hear a second? So, all right, all those in favor?
Aye.
So closed, and we just won't take action at this time. Next time through, we'll just vote. We'll have the paperwork.
Very good.
Any questions, comments, concerns? Thank you for.
Yeah, we will fail.
Yeah, no, God, I hope not, but thank you for the history behind it too. That was fascinating.
Actually, the next meeting, I do have, do I have to come in for the emergency cert for the beaver dams, or are we all set on that?
you're all set on that.
And I dropped a completion report off to you just to
Yes,
get
I
it,
saw
we did,
that.
all the work was done in one day.
Yeah.
But it's a beaver dams, we put 2 beaver devices in, at 2 culverts, so they're working like a champ.
Where?
On
Burnham
Burnham.
Road,
Oh, yeah.
both of those
Oh, yeah,
culverts
yeah,
in
yeah,
Burnham. They've been,
That looks like that's filling up too.
that's, yeah, I mean, it's raining.
It's gonna do.
It's
Yeah,
not
it's not
because of the culverts and it's not because of the beaver activity. What's happening these past few days is just the watershed is so big and it's just flat, and it's just getting a lot of rain.
Yep.
I think we have almost 4 inches of rain in the past week.
There we go.
Yeah.
Okay. So I won't be at the next meeting for that probably, not needed?
No, not needed.
Unless you just want to come and hang out.
Yeah.
We always.
I'm on my own conservation
Yeah.
person, hang out up there.
Yeah, fine.
Bye, George.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Sorry I was late. See you guys.
We'll talk South Bolton Road. Yes.
So the relics he was talking about are living on private property?
What's that?
I think so. The mill,
Yeah, when you go look, give me a
The
holler.
mill complex?
relics, basically. They're on the left-hand side as you're, well, as you're going down, the same side as the stables, right?
Up behind the stables?
I don't know if he was talking about that same so he was talking about the stone structures on that same property, which is literally the stable or barn. I think, if I heard him correctly, it may be on a different property, the mill complex
I think you're
that he
right.
was referring to. I'm not positive. I can email him.
Fiveshire Dam is the button mill, if I remember
Button
my
factory.
mark.
Button
Button factory,
mill.
There was,
yeah.
there was a mill on Forbush Road too that was.
Yep, the
built,
foundation's there.
and still there,
Um,
down by the recycle center. There's a, on the left going towards the soccer field, there's an old dam in there, an old mill in there too.
I don't think
It's perfectly
How
fine.
far down?
Right?
Right by the soccer fields?
Yeah, no, a little up further.
You know where the reservoir is, between the reservoir and the soccer fields?
Yeah.
Yeah.
You can see it, you can see it.
Oh, it's on
I
the
think
road.
on the left-hand side going down towards the soccer field.
I don't usually get that close to it.
It's a fun thing to explore. All right, the Bolton Conservation Commission will now hold a public hearing under the provisions of Mass General Law, Chapter 131, Section 40, and under the Bolton Wetland Bylaw, Chapter 233, to consider a request for a certificate of compliance from 466 South Bolton Road. The public hearing to be held this evening. Right now. Okay, go ahead. Do you have an update on this?
I do and I don't. I was out on site for the site visit report that I emailed you all in addition to the images, which I'm hoping went through. I know there's a few.
They did.
The site is complete in terms of the structure. There were some, let's see. So nothing that can be resolved fairly easily. The part of the order of conditions states that they need 2 growing seasons, which is typically 2 spring seasons. They've planted everything that needs to be planted. The 2 questions regarding the plantings, aside from just reaching the successful growing period, I guess, or going through the 2 successful growing periods, is the sugar maple tree that the commission was very adamant about saving. They did their due diligence in terms of when it was being burnt, the pre-existing structure. They saved that tree and it's still standing, but I highly encourage them to have an arborist or the tree warden take a peek at it. There's a lot of fungus growing on it. It doesn't look like it's doing too well. So I wasn't sure if the commission will want them to plant something else, if it is in fact dead. In addition to that, this red maple may be dying. All the other ones seem to be very lively, or I guess to be general about it, but that one was the only one of concern. Everything else looked fine. This tree here, there's some erosion around this post, and in addition to that, this tree is being undermined by that erosion, and it's coming from this slope in 2 places. I feel that it's just over time, because it's just focused to those 2 places, that if they put fill, compact it, reseed, it will be okay. There's a small, same thing, channel of erosion over on this side. It's outside of the jurisdictional area, but the original issue with that many months ago, and actually I should have mentioned it while Joe was here and had him explain it as well, it eroded to the point where it made it to the riprap, but it was because no grass had been growing, nothing was there. We had some substantial rain events right in a row, much like we see now, but with the bare ground it traveled. Aside from that though, so aside from the erosion here and here, there is some sediment along here. They did remove some of it, which occurred around that same time period. So that's just, again, as things take hold in terms of vegetation, that will be reduced. But those are really the outstanding items. Everything else, as far as erosion, the vegetation, or anything like that, it wasn't a huge issue. So that being said, at the end of the site visit, I did get in contact with the engineer, and they had stated that they would have the developer out there to resolve these issues, or would try to prior to the meeting. They haven't as of yet. So those items are still outstanding at this time. But everything else seems to be too far, I guess, with the order of conditions.
See, that's what I was gonna ask. Did we get an as-built? Isn't that part of what we require for that?
That is here.
I think that's a 3-bedroom house.
What?
It's a proposed 3-bedroom house.
Is it 3-bedroom?
Baby, that thing's freaking huge. Well, not huge, but it seems like it's a.
You know, the big sugar maple,
This is the
is
as-built.
it, you think it's on its way out the door?
Yes.
It is. I mean, that was a lot of heat for that tree when they burned that house down.
So that was this tree here?
Half of it may still be alive, so it could still be viable, but, I mean, it's, if you just drive.
I know, it doesn't look healthy to me when that comes.
So you've seen it?
Yeah, that's a shortcut from instead of going 495, if you go down past South Bolton Road, you can avoid the traffic at 5 o'clock at night.
Mhm.
But you go right by the house and that is always,
So it's,
you know, if
Yeah, I'll take
you know
a look
where it
at it.
is. But it was a big, the original house that was on there, they burned down. They had a fire drill, and they set it on fire.
They did, really?
yeah, the fire department used it as
Used
a
it
training.
as a training thing. And the real issue was that big
How old
tree.
was the house?
It's one of the issues. There were a number of issues.
The big house, regular house.
It
House.
was,
Too old? No antique-ish.
Oh.
No, no. years ago.
All, that whole side of town, Lori was saying was little cabins and camps and things like that.
This was a pretty big size house. They had a big training, they had a bunch of fire departments from the towns in there, and they put stuff in it to burn up and had themselves a good old time with hoses. But we were worried about the tree. Apparently, that much heat around the tree probably didn't help us.
Papers don't take abuse well.
No, I don't think so.
It seems like there are enough, so though some small, it seems like there's enough things outstanding that I wouldn't think that like a full certificate of compliance would be warranted at this time. I could see us doing a partial, but I could also, there's enough open things still that it would seem like, why don't we wait until some of those are taken care of?
Is it an issue with them selling the place?
That's none of our business.
None of our business?
Yeah, no.
I mean, they're aware that these things existed when they asked for this certificate of compliance, or?
Yes.
Yeah, it's interesting. It was proposed as a 3-bedroom. Is it a 3-bedroom system?
So
It's
the pro-
probably not, is it? I wonder if it's a, sorry.
I believe they actually may have,
I'm not sure. I think it's because it was like a 4, might have been a 4-bedroom one before. Oh no, it was a 3-bedroom dwelling before.
yep, 3-bedroom it says.
3-bedroom system?
3-bedroom.
Can we check to see if that's a 3-bedroom house?
We can, so
That's a very large house.
the way that they built it though, the garage goes under the home.
Yep, so it could very well be,
So I don't know if they have basement and then it's just the living space on top.
well, just the asking amounts seemed extremely high for a 3-bedroom home.
I mean, I don't know the.
Yeah,
answer to
no,
that.
I don't know,
I'm betting it
I'm
has to do
sure.
with the design of trying to,
Yeah, and that's probably the health department, right? Doesn't Board of
Board of
Health have to
Health.
sign off on the septic and
Yeah,
check
it
to make
has
sure
to
that the
be-
house is not outstripping the septic and all that, so that's kind of outside our purview.
yeah.
So
But
we're
then
basically
also-
worried about the trees growing.
Well, a few, I mean,
Plantings
Well,
Yeah.
and the erosion.
and the erosion,
as well.
yeah, basically,
Yes.
but it's, yeah, and if you,
So-
the pictures that Rebecca sent, it's significant enough erosion that it's not a small little, oh, that'll be.
we have to wait another year for that to
For the
actually
growth anyway.
be able
Yeah,
to say, yes, it's fine, or
Yeah.
no, it's not. So
and we've done partial, certificate of compliance, basically where it's just that growing season, where there's one more growing season on the grass or the trees, but everything else has been
Is there
done.
something the developer can do now though, or do we have to wait? You really have to wait till spring or something like
yeah,
that?
wait till spring.
Well, so in the order of conditions, it says two
Two growing.
growing seasons or 2 years regardless, they've only been through one growing season with the plants. So we'd have to wait until spring anyways to issue a full per the order of conditions. And then in addition to that, if anything dies, then whatever dies has to go through too.
So
What
if
are
they
they
lose
gonna do
that big maple, it has to be replaced.
No,
No, yeah.
not necessarily because that's not in the order of conditions,
Okay.
but that can be, because it was to be preserved, I don't see it as an unnecessary ask for something to replace it. But I was more talking about the red maples that they've planted around the perimeter of the resource area and around the riprap barrier and then the seeded areas. Those need the 2
Okay.
growing seasons or 2
Right.
years.
And right now, it was, I know you said, it was one of the red maples here you thought was failing.
This one.
Yeah.
Yep.
And that's the other, I mean,
The
you
other
gotta
seem
make it to
fine.
another season,
This
but everybody
one,
seems fine.
was being undermined a little bit, and it
Yeah.
actually wasn't the newly planted, it was an older tree that's pre-existing there, which that tree's doing fine, it's just getting undercut by the erosion that's being
see it.
redirected there. So once they fix the erosion issue, they fill in where it's eroded around the post, then that should resolve itself. I don't see that being a continual problem.
And get other people's thoughts too, but like, as far as the tree goes, if it's dying and cannot be saved, like, it makes sense to me, of course, let them take it down.
Do it, yeah.
Would like to see it replaced with something. They have the red maples already, some other
Kind of
trees. Nice.
I have no, I can't, I don't know, what kind of fungus, fungus, I don't know.
Was it mushrooms on it?
Yes,
Yeah.
white mushrooms. Don't know what kind. It wasn't chicken of the woods.
Nothing here goes with
You
it.
There was
hungry?
more of a shelf and all over. This is,
It was oyster mushrooms.
sure.
Just wondering.
So-
They're great.
So-
There's like 2 or 3 mushrooms that I really like, that's one of them.
Foraging, always foraging.
Is that?
There we go. Nothing wrong with that, yeah.
Dying sugar maples.
So,
That sugar maple's gone. Once you see those in a sugar maple, it's gone in 2
Well-
or 3 years.
If they remove it, you can have it. Maybe you can propagate mushrooms.
Oh, there you go.
They might be there right now.
They are, I don't know if they've gone by, so, I don't know. You're more
no,
predictable
no,
than
no.
I am. I'm very
This,
hesitant when it comes to that
this
stuff.
discussion has made an unusual turn.
Yes.
Yes,
Sorry.
but regarding the certificate of compliance, just other people's thoughts, suggestions?
I would, I don't know exactly how to say it, but you want to make sure that they understand that we're doing this, but if these things die, they need to be replaced. So whatever kind of language that needs to be incorporated in, I would think that would be the way to, you know, to tell them.
Right,
You know,
right.
It's okay, except, you know, we've got the right to look at it after, so that would be September of 2019,
Yeah,
right?
Yeah.
we have that already in.
Okay,
Yeah.
so then,
So here are the options. The options are
Thank you.
complete certification, partial certification, invalid order of conditions, ongoing conditions, or order of resource delineation, which doesn't apply to this.
so partial.
But if we said partial, would we have to list what is and what's not? Is it also possible not to grant just deny the request for the order, for the certificate of compliance?
Yes. You can just stand to say the order of conditions. Trying to think. So an invalid order is hereby certified that the work regulated by above referenced order of conditions never commenced. The order of condition has lapsed and is therefore no longer valid. No future work subject to regulation under Wetlands Protection Act. This was, and then partial project areas or work subject to this partial certification have been completed and no release from this order are, and you list off the things that were. Maintenance ongoing. So there is, I mean, you can simply say you can't consider a certificate of compliance at this time because you have outstanding items.
Sure. And would that be a poll? Would that be a motion to close?
That would be, well, you'd have to motion to close and then you'd have to vote to not issue the certificate of compliance because there's not enough information in terms of the outstanding items
Yep.
that have yet to be addressed. But that's also the same as a partial at the same time.
Okay.
You're just saying that some of it's been approved, I mean, some of it's been completed, some of it hasn't. So I certainly wouldn't advise to go with a complete certification because I
No.
don't see how you could. But I could also see how you could say there's a lot of outstanding issues that need to be addressed as well.
Yeah, well, I was thinking, like, if we were to do a partial, though, do I have a clear listing of what has been done?
Or what is still outstanding?
I printed out.
does it get them anything to have the partial?
Not really.
Not
Does it-
really,
Just a
unless,
feel-good thing?
unless it's in, like, when they're selling it, but again, that's that has nothing to do with
And we
what should Wayne.
still have to wait another year before, so there's like a 2-year.
Yeah, and sometimes I think that's why the partial's good, is you can show that everything you were supposed to have done is done, except you have to wait another year to make sure the grass takes, or, some trees live, and if they don't, you have to replant them, and it shows you that, the majority of stuff was done correct. But with this, like some of those erosions, if you saw the pictures that Rebecca sent, it's significant.
Yeah.
And say that
Looks like it's gonna fall off.
necessarily done correct just yet.
But when you say it's not none of our business if they sell it, but if they do sell it, who picks up the tab for the,
The applicant's still the responsible party until we
Still
receive
responsible for
notice
that?
otherwise, yep,
even though he doesn't own the property anymore?
yes. So he's the applicant, because the applicant doesn't always own the property. Sometimes it's a contractor, sometimes it's a developer.
Okay,
So,
so he basically,
yeah,
which means if he sells it, we don't do it, he'll just
if he's,
ignore it.
if he sells it,
Well, it's what's going on with Century Mill Road right now with that one
Right,
house.
that's what I was thinking.
so under the,
No, Century Mill.
So
Road,
under-
the one,
Oh, I know which one you're talking about.
yeah, that last one, like a bill where it's
Right.
owned, but
Right.
Ace is still responsible
Right,
for
I
the
know
order
which
of
one you're talking about.
conditions,
yeah,
so it kind of sticks.
oh, Century Mill.
Yeah, sorry.
It's okay. But yeah, same thing.
Well, first and foremost, I'd like to make a motion that we close the public hearing for the certificate of compliance for 466 South Fulton Road.
Second.
All right, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. I was gonna say, if people have strong feelings a different way, I'd lean almost towards just denying the certificate of compliance at this point in time, that we just have incomplete information, was that?
Yeah, so,
Makes
Just
sense.
trying to think
Just
of the
say-
grounds on which it was appropriate.
or you
Makes
could,
sense.
oh no, you can't continue because,
We can opt to take no action at this time, but
right, you could do that as well. So I guess you'd probably just issue ongoing conditions and just say, under the ongoing conditions option, state that at this time, you cannot issue a complete certification until all conditions are within compliance with the original order 112645.
so in theory, I would say, I'd like to make a motion that we institute or approve ongoing conditions for the notice of condition for, notice of intent for 466 South Fulton Road, and what was the wording?
For the order of conditions for 466 under the DEP file number 112645, but then also mention the fact that you can't consider a complete certification or partial due to the fact that the order of conditions items are still outstanding.
Things like,
Do you want me to write this up?
possibly, even shorthand works. I'm confusing myself. While she's doing that, if people have a chance to look through minutes from last week.
I did.
um,
Excellent.
I kind of have to abstain from that vote. We don't have to take a vote on that now, but when it is time to take a vote on that, if everybody's already read through them, it moves faster.
I particularly like the new title they gave me here. It's,
I like that. It's nice, isn't it?
got no raise in pay, but,
I heard they doubled your pay.
yeah, they did.
All right. I would like to now make a motion to issue ongoing conditions of the order for 466 South Fulton Road, all conditions associated with DEP file number, with 466 South Fulton Road, DEP file number 112-645. A certificate of compliance is unable to be considered until all outstanding work has been completed per the original order of conditions.
Second.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye? Okay. Thank you for jotting that down. All right, let me fill that for you.
So minutes, do you wanna?
I can do those quick, yeah. Do we have a thing for Broomfield?
What?
Minutes, I was not here, but
So Jeff has to make the motion.
there you go.
I have to make a motion
Yes, you do.
to accept the minutes as written. Do I hear a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, aye, aye. So, notice, the minutes have been accepted.
That's wonderful. Thank you.
Have a problem.
We don't have
Next
quorum.
meeting.
Yep, we do. Yep.
Emily, you're-
Yep, because I have to abstain. for that.
What?
Just kidding.
We need to have at least 4 voting members, a quorum,
Who were here.
who were actually here.
Oh.
I can't really attest to it. I could
So
have
what does that
been
mean?
watching the whole
So
thing.
That means you can't accept the minutes?
Not yet.
We're gonna continue that until the next meeting.
We'll
Yeah.
continue the minutes till the next set of minutes.
Oh, yes.
That's until, all seriousness, so we'll continue the meeting minutes until we have a quorum of people who were
Present.
present at the meeting.
You got it. And then you can make the motion.
So,
Yeah, you make the motion to approve 2 things in minutes.
but,
Okay.
oh yeah. Were you here last week? Well, that wasn't in there, why wasn't that in there?
Should be there now.
So we missed that.
So that's why it's good to get a second shot at.
Right, the pain was at there last, so there are 4. 1, 2, 3.
Yeah. And
There's
Four.
only 3 of us.
There's only 3 voters.
Yeah. That's what we're. Okay.
Okay,
The Bolton Conservation Commission will now hold a public hearing under the provisions of Mass General Law, Chapter 131, Section 40, and under the Bolton Button Bylaw, Chapter 233, to consider the request for a certificate of compliance for Broomfield Laboratories of Still River Road. The public meeting to begin this evening, right now. Do we have anybody from Broomfield? All right, then Rebecca, would you like to give us an update?
Sure. I was out on site twice, once being on this, actually shortly after this date, or excuse me, before. So they moved the hay bales slightly after consulting with me, to basically finish the grades on that slope, which I think there was about 2 feet more that they had to even off there, so that's why they did that. And then now they have seeded and put hay over the area per the order of conditions, and hoping that it takes hold before winter here, but if not, they'll be sure that the erosion control and the hay remains on that side of those controls. Or remain in place in those controls. So this is as-built. The only work that was done related to this is this system here.
The grass is gonna grow.
And there's a steep slope here. So it's been installed, the only thing that needs to be done is the grass needs to grow.
Do you have a recommendation on this one?
I would say,
It's got a 2-year compliance too?
I believe this one does, but it's not as specific as the other one. Because this doesn't have substantial plantings aside from seeding, where the other one does, so it
Yep.
really requires, if it's dead, you need to replant. But that's specific to the trees.
But it even looks like, even if the grass doesn't grow, it's gonna be protected through the winter. Probably this might even look better than the regular grass. Going in there, who knows?
We'll see.
We'll see.
Might,
And this is the storm drain, the runoff.
yes, so
Yeah,
the,
it empties into it, right?
it's up here. So it comes, if this overflows, it comes this way.
Yeah.
And then eventually comes out.
Sorry, did you have a recommendation?
Oh, I would say because either a complete or partial, because the work has been completed, they've been very careful to complete the grades and redo the erosion control, make sure that those are intact. Specifically before winter, make sure that they seed, make sure that they hay over the seed. And so I think it'd be smart for the commission to either have ongoing conditions associated with a complete certification, associated with, contingent upon stabilization via grass seed or the mix that's planted there, I think it's a mix instead. Or a partial with the completion of the drainage structure, but the outstanding items would be the final grades there in case there's any erosion over the winter, which I don't think there will be, and then the seeding associated with that.
Anybody have strong feelings on one or the other?
No, I think they've done a good job with what they have right there. How the winter handles the seeding and the hay that's there, we don't know at this point, right?
Yeah, and it's, correct me if I'm wrong, it's an interesting situation, because I think they own both parts of land, but this
Yes.
is a private residence
Yeah,
here. So it's basically was backyard,
yes.
and it's kind of if the seeding doesn't take, like, I suppose the person could just leave it a mud patch back there. My guess is they're gonna keep reseeding it until it takes. I don't see any reason why they wouldn't maintain the lawn or keep maintaining the lawn or try to maintain the lawn.
You're either gonna get grass or weeds, either way, it's gonna be green.
Tight, but.
I don't have an issue with it.
All right. So,
Trying to read your options again?
well, yeah, well, I guess I'm torn between a partial, which would just be basically we're waiting for the planting season. Well, and you said stabilization too, right, possible? Final grading and stabilization, but.
So the options are complete certification, certifying that all work regulated by the above referenced order of conditions has been satisfactorily completed. Partial project areas of work subject to this partial certification have been completed and are released from this order R. That would be the drainage structure itself in terms of the infrastructure. Invalid order, which doesn't apply here. Ongoing conditions, following conditions of the order shall continue. And again, this we wouldn't mention not issuing the complete certificate of compliance, but rather you're issuing the complete certification, and in addition, your ongoing conditions associated with the seating, and then order of resource area delineation, which does not apply.
Okay.
Yeah. Tell you.
All right. So I think I'd like to make a motion that we issue a certificate of compliance for 466 South Bolton Road with the following ongoing.
466.
I'm sorry, for Broomfield Laboratories on Still River Road, with the following ongoing conditions, that, both planting and final grading, oh God, it's gonna meet the original order. Or are complete as outlined in the original order.
Or you could say, or no, I guess you'd have to do that. I was gonna say as referenced on the as-built, but that's more relative to the structure, not the seating.
Right.
So yeah, that makes sense.
Does that make sense? All right. Do I hear a second on that?
Second.
All those in favor?
I was giving you the opportunity.
Oh, I already had your hand up there.
No, I was just pointing at, it's your turn to second this, second.
Okay, so you issued the COC was
We're trying
ongoing.
to share the
Yes.
second.
Or partial.
Nice.
It was the COC with ongoing, right?
Okay, so check off ongoing,
Yep.
and that should be fine, and just right in here. I would say successful vegetation with no erosion. Result, actually. Let me quote it from the order.
Successful vegetation.
And then you can just write the number.
That's all right.
Yeah, so I can
All right,
do
so
this
that's,
after.
rebid. Will this work for you? Successful revegetation, grading of site is described in original order.
That's fine.
We'll go with that then. We're 7:30, so we can do the, 1 and 2. Because that should be final. Well. We'll be quick, we'll see. Kind of strong feelings on that. I know Jeff Bryant's opposed to it.
Go ahead. Which one is this?
This is the Harvard Road, those two back
Okay.
lots,
Yeah.
used to be tennis court, right?
So they're requesting
An extension.
Oh, no, not that one.
No, no.
Not the one that was just conditioned. This is from 2 years ago.
what are we doing?
Yeah.
703 Main Street?
Yeah, we're at lots 1 and 2.
So,
I'll leave that now.
so This is a project that was started fairly recently, actually, probably a year ago. And it involves a crossing. This is if you're driving up Harvard Road before we get to 232. That was just redone and completed. There's a dirt road cut into the slope on your right.
Oh, yeah.
There should be a locus on here. Yeah.
Oh, no, I know where the dirt road is, yeah.
No.
There's two houses out there.
There's none. They're not built yet.
Oh.
So they cut in, they cleared, they cut in the
dirt
road. Now, this order of conditions is on the verge of expiring. So it's just extending it so they can continue work.
Do you have any concerns, thoughts, strong feelings, recommendations one way or the other?
I don't. I always, if someone's actively working on a project, I'm an advocate to keep them working on it, because the worst thing is to just leave a site open, excuse me, with nothing happening on it. Which isn't the case here, but, or at least to my knowledge, it's not. I know it's for sale, so I don't know if they'll come in with an affidavit or if the same developer will still continue with the project or not.
Any major changes that you're aware of in legislation or any major bylaws that would affect
No, this was.
an extension of the, yeah.
This was in 2015
Yep.
that it was issued, so nothing substantial has changed. There is an area on the property to the rear that they're required to, there's a deed restriction that they're required to maintain for natural heritage, but that's natural heritage enforcement one way or another, and I haven't heard if there's an issue with that. So my assumption is there's not. So really, it'd be the extension on the crossing itself.
Thoughts?
It's dirt road.
Nobody's here to comment on this, so. Unless anybody has a strong feeling to the contrary, I tend to agree that
Yeah,
if nothing major has changed, let's keep going. All right. In that case, I'd like to make a motion that we issue an extension for the current order of conditions for lots 1 and 2 Harvard Road.
And it's the file number 112637.
DEP file number 112637. To extend for the period of 1 year. Do I hear a second?
Second.
Are those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. So extended.
So, extend to
1119, yeah.
It's coming up scared fast.
And Jeff had the second one?
No.
Kip. Kip had the second on that one, yeah.
No.
Jumping
Around
in.
the table.
I threw my voice though.
You can take the second
You
one.
what?
I threw my voice.
So never again.
So I think you drove by your house and started walking out front Sunday.
Sunday's yard right there, yeah. Did I look busy with the green sweatshirt?
Walking down the driveway, I mean the sidewalk. I had to go help a friend build a goat barn, so I could get some of the goats.
Goat farm. Goat farms you go to, there's goat farms.
So I would stop, but I was late to him. The sun was setting. It was like 2 o'clock.
Mhm.
Okay. The Bolton Conservation Commission will now hold a public hearing under the provisions of Mass General Law, Chapter 131, Section 40, and under the Bolton Wetland Bylaw, Chapter 233, to consider the notice of intent filed by Ducharme and Dillis regarding construction of a new septic system for an existing single-family house located at 703 Main Street. The public meeting to begin this evening. Right now.
It's the house right next door.
Yes, it is.
We had a sidewalk last week, like most of everybody was out there. Kind of a tricky one with the brook running through the backyard, but house has an existing well off to the left side of it. Here's a 100-foot radius here, which pretty much takes up this whole yard area. Town hall has a well off to this side of the building. We have the 100-footer over in here. So pump, crush the existing cesspool, new 1,500-gallon septic tank, 1,000-gallon pump chamber, force main, all the way up to the back area up here where we walked. First purple line here is a 50-foot. This is the 100-foot buffer. Everything's contained inside that wall area. We talked about crossing the brook with a couple of construction plates on top of each other to get up here. I did give Rebecca some plans last week and talk to you guys about it, how we're gonna stop the brook, hopefully, if it ever stops raining, to excavate to get the force main in. We're gonna sleeve it this gray, heavier area here is a sleeve. So basically we're gonna put 3 8 to 12-inch pipes, sandbag it on both ends. The water's gonna go through and just continue on through the culvert that runs through the front of this property. And then in the meantime, they'll be able to trench across, get through, put the sleeve in, and it's gonna be, what I've spec'd is an HDPE. It's basically like a water pipe, force main, no joints. The only joint will be at the tank or inside the tank. It'll be on a reel. They can just spin it out and get it up to outside at least the 50-foot before there's a first joint. Typically it's a 180-pound pressure pipe, so it can withstand a lot of pressure.
How deep does that go?
So the water's gonna go through these things?
Correct. So here's a cross section of it. So the three
Oh, I
pipes would
see.
be here.
Yep.
You know, kind of a quickie detail, but they're gonna sandbag it up to the top
So
of the
that'll
tank.
force the water in through
It'll
those.
force the water through the pipes,
Yep.
correct.
Yep.
And you'll just dig a trench under them.
Right.
Yeah, so, yeah, they'll be digging through here and then they'll just go underneath it.
Yeah.
You know, get half of it and then get to the other side, do the other half, get it through.
I had one question actually about the notice of intent, and I apologize because I didn't pick up on it before. You check off that you have a restoration enhancement area of
That should
50
be-
square feet?
All right, no, that should be a typo.
Okay.
Yeah.
So even though you're within the resource area, you're not proposing any enhancement because it's
It's gonna be
grandfathered?
put, yeah, it's gonna be put right, well, and it'll be put right back to what it is.
Right.
Including the rustic toys.
Those will probably be gone. And then, like we talked about, if you're gonna condition to have all the metal and the old pool and all that stuff removed during construction, that's, I'm gonna have an issue with that.
This is still interesting to me because, so, the sewer pipe is gonna go underneath that like that?
Correct.
So they'll have this and then what will they do, just bore through it?
No, they'll dig under it,
Dig it?
they'll have to breach underneath it.
But it'll
So-
still be flowing on top of it?
Yeah, so they'll sandbag it far enough where the water's going in the pipe.
Pipe, and there's nothing
This-
underneath it?
This area in here will be, yeah,
And then, so
You may have
so
some
like a tunnel
groundwater.
underneath it? Yeah.
right, you may have some groundwater,
Yeah.
but, you know,
Yep, yep.
we'll have to deal with that at that time, but it should be hopefully quick enough.
Hopefully it'll be a little drier than
Yeah,
this.
when they were doing Fulton's house, the pink house, they ended
Yeah.
up putting, I think they took out like 2 truckloads of boulders, anywhere from, 12-inch up to
Underneath,
2 feet.
underneath the bottom of the.
In
brook.
that backyard where they had to excavate all the
Oh.
top and subsoil, and then they just started hitting boulder after boulder
Yeah, I
after
bet you'll
boulder.
find a few rocks along there.
Exactly, we're kind of sitting in a
Yeah.
glacial
Surprise.
saddle here, so.
Well, I'm just sort of curious how so you're gonna put that on the bed of the stream right now?
Correct.
And then they'll dig underneath it, put down this pipe which comes in a big roll? Is that-
Well, this will be the sleeve. That'll be a 6-inch or 4-inch sleeve, Schedule 40.
Oh, I see.
Yeah, so it'll be a pipe within a pipe, correct.
I see.
So then what they'll do is they'll bed around it best they can with sand,
Yeah,
and then they're gonna put
put
two different.
stuff down on
Yeah,
like the
put
bed,
it,
redo the bed on the
Let's say
street.
3-inch minus here, and then they're gonna go 6-inch minus on the top.
Right, so that'll actually redo the bed of the stream,
Correct.
back to
Yeah.
what it
Yeah,
was.
and it'll be, just a couple.
What are they gonna do with
feet
these 3 pipes? Will they pull those out?
Yeah, once they get everything in here,
Then they'll
then
yank-
they're gonna, yeah,
Pull the bags
let that
out,
go
and
and let
bunch
it go
out, and
again.
away you go.
Yep.
So what does it mean on the drawing where you say 6-inch minus?
So 6-inch stone minus, so nothing greater than 6
Oh,
inches.
okay.
So this is basically crushed stone, and this is like riprap.
Yeah.
6-inch riprap.
The only other question, so they'll protect the digging around here with.
Yep, these heavy
stone
lines,
wattles.
these heavy
Yeah,
lines
that's
are
what that
wattles.
is. Correct.
Yep.
Right. Listen, it's interesting. You know,
Yeah, it's a tough one.
I don't know, Brian, you must have been on the commission when they did the house,
I can tell you.
because they had to do something very similar.
Actually,
I was just saying, I'm wondering if I was, but wasn't a part of it, I don't, it's not
I didn't
removing.
pull that plan, so I don't know exactly when that
it's an
was.
interesting project. It's amazing how much land there is back there, it's just.
Yeah.
Just think
Yeah,
about it.
1.78 acres total.
Hmm.
And that still goes back this way.
Yeah, he was saying it was all grass at one time.
2000.
were you here when
Yeah.
Walter Chapin was the agent? Okay,
It was
so,
2000, I think that's dated, right?
yeah,
Yeah,
well, 2001, but
2001.
Interesting
that
project.
was before Brian. Anyway, so I did end up pulling, yes. Oh, poor Carol.
Wow.
I did end up pulling the original file just for my peace of mind, because this is my first time dealing with something like this as well, and I spoke to the Board of Health, to just see what their take on it was, and they didn't really have any concerns because of the sleeve. So that area that's immediately adjacent to, so long as when you dig and everything's in place, that sleeve's there, like Jack mentioned, to maintain any bit of the pipe that needs to be maintained, if that's even necessary, but that assumed would be many years down the line.
Right, if for some reason that 2-inch HDPE pipe had issues, they could cut it, drain it.
They don't
pull it
have
out.
to dig up the whole street
Right,
again.
right.
And they just slide it back with the
Slide it
sleeve
right
again.
to the
Correct.
sleeve.
And then for comparison purposes, this is obviously the same thing that's been successful just
Next door.
on the adjacent
Yeah.
property. So that
Yeah, so
made,
they
that
did-
made me have a little bit,
Yeah, so they proposed a coffer dam here.
Yeah.
Proposed hay bale, dike, silt fence upstream, very similar to what we have. And then they came through here, and then they just skirted along the outskirts of this wetland
Right,
here.
that's it, yeah.
Yeah, so our system's over here, your system was that one that you could see up in the back up here,
Right.
so. And then again, this was back in 2001.
and
It's
when I
still
talked
working
to
today.
Yeah.
Board of Health, but it was just, my conversation with him was more, what are the Board of Health concerns with putting it on the same lot? And with their setbacks that they need to meet in terms of drinking water and the well and everything like that, they basically said, on that side of the brook, it's out.
Yeah, because of, you could do something with, just outside the 50-foot, but you can see with the
Yeah.
50-foot, it doesn't give you
Right.
any
Yeah,
room,
it's not-
so. And you look back at the Pink House, Philbin's house, that backyard was maximized as septic system.
Yeah.
So,
Right.
and then they had to drill a new well out the front, so, this is a little bit different scenario, but
Another one.
Well, it meant.
at least they had land on one side of the house side of the brook.
Right.
In the existing conditions of that, this is accessible within the water table.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes, yeah.
Well, so that one was too.
Yes.
Yeah.
Still at the, but
Yeah.
a little bit further away, so.
Yeah, and it's basically mirroring the house next door to it, it's how the system's set up
Correct.
now.
Yep.
So all that said, I didn't have too many additional questions with this one.
I'm just interested in watching how I'm just interested in the engineering. That's all.
It's fascinating
So
too.
we can come watch, right? I think that's what you
Oh,
Yeah,
said.
yeah, we can do
Come on.
inspection.
You guys have permission right in your.
We do.
Then you order
That's the
conditions.
We write it in.
inspection, so you guys do it, that's fine.
Just the engineering, just.
Trust me, I'll be there too, taking pictures, so,
Fascinating.
yeah.
But any other questions, thoughts, concerns?
No concerns.
No.
I have a question.
Say.
Who is going to be the wetland specialist on site? Is that you, Brandon?
Probably Brandon.
Okay.
Yeah.
Or an outside party, I don't know. Who put
It'll-
Brandon?
Yeah, we
Okay.
we can use Brandon.
Yeah, he's not here to defend himself, so we don't use him.
Volunteer.
That's wrong, yeah.
Yeah.
He's gonna
Happens all
have
the
just
time.
as much fun watching this pipeline as we would.
I
Yeah.
think, yeah, this will be an office field trip.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, any other thoughts?
I'm trying to think of other. So as far as thoughts go, the impacted resource areas would be the adjacent upland resource areas associated with the DVW that's sort of sticking out there, the finger, and then the riverfront area. But then you go back to the exemption because of the age of the home. Is it practical to put it, or feasible to put it on the opposite side of the brook? In my mind, it's not, and that's really the only place they can put it that's feasible and makes sense. And it's improving on existing conditions, so
I agree with that.
that's, as much as this is my first time being part of the permitting process for something like this, admittedly, in terms of drilling under, or even digging under the brook. Unfortunately, to an extent, I think it's the best option. Definitely better.
And how long do you work with the brook dammed like that? Just a day?
Yeah, I would think, yeah,
Hopefully,
it would just be the day,
They'll try.
you know. I mean, it's gonna be a short time, it's not
Yeah,
like
it's a
we're gonna
short
leave it like
period
that
of
for a
time.
week, because,
Who knows what happens in a week?
yeah.
Do
we get-
you have it in the details on, or the general notes, or in the construction notes, that how you will access the rear there? Like plating required? I know the commission can issue that as a condition, but I didn't know.
I think I put it in the narrative,
Okay, so I'll just carry that
so,
over.
yeah, that, you know, it was suggested that they do that. There's really no other way. We did talk about coming up through here, around the back of this parking lot, there was an old cart road, but you can't get today's trucks up around that corner without having to,
Yeah.
you know, take some of that wall down and make that turning radius,
Mhm.
because that's like a 90-degree turn out here.
And well, you're still gonna have to trench.
And then you'd have
straight down.
a bunch of
You're
trees that
still
you'd have
gonna
to take down
cut
to
straight
get,
in, yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, no, I can.
Because Judy, the owner of the lot, said, geez, maybe we can get in that way, and I drove up here right afterwards, and
Oh, I think we talked about that at the.
Yeah,
Yeah.
we
site
did.
visit.
I think Joe looked at it too, and maybe
Yes.
you looked at it, yeah, it's just, you couldn't do it.
So how big is the holding tank on this side of the brook? Like if they lose power and they can't pump all the poop up there? How?
The pump chamber is designed to hold 24-hour storage in it. So the way I have it designed, well, that's Title V, but the way I typically design the tanks is usually about, it's around 800 gallons. And it's in the pump notes. Back page. Sorry, it's right here. 775 gallons of storage. So it's only a 3-bedroom house, so 2 days. If, you know, but you lose power, you're not gonna be pumping well water anyway, unless you have a generator. But if you get a generator, you might as well
You
be
can
able to
pump
run
that
it,
too.
to pump everything,
How
so.
big a pump does that need to get all over?
Uh,
Sorry.
No, it's a really.
It's a 1 horsepower pump. Yep.
When are they gonna do it?
Don't know. I'm not sure what the terms of the sale are, if it's gonna be sold
As is? with
as
this-
is with permits, so I don't know.
So they actually have, they're trying to sell the property,
The house has been up for sale
and
almost
this
all
is gonna
summer.
have to be,
Yeah, So I don't know what her intention is.
Yeah.
I know.
But she needs to put it there to,
Yeah, she's asked, everybody that's come to look at it has asked for copies of the plan so they can get estimates. So I'm assuming that it's gonna be taking off the sale to
right.
accommodate that, so.
I'm happy.
All right, that's it. I would like to make a motion that we issue,
Close first.
I'd like to make a motion that we close the public hearing for 703 Main Street.
Second.
All those in favor? Aye. Alright. I'd like to make a motion that we issue an order of conditions for 703 Main Street as drafted and submitted in our current meeting with the following condition, that all trash and scrap metal be removed from the site prior to completion of the project.
Yep.
Yeah. Do I hear a second?
Second. Nope.
You can second. All right, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye? Opposed? Unanimous.
Yes,
Yeah.
thank you.
Yeah.
All right, have a good night.
We'll see you.
Take care.
Mark, would you like to approach?
Sure. Not too bad. How far are we?
I don't know.
14.
Oh, you don't have the revised agenda. So Mark had come before me to inquire about Craftsman Village. And I'm not sure, for those of you who have been on site or familiar with the property, the wells were installed prior to you acquiring the property, my understanding.
Like
and it's-
decades ago.
Remember that? Yeah, right, and they're right in the middle of like the.
Yes.
the wetland,
So, with that opening,
So, the property from when it was originally proposed to where it is now is dramatically different. So we have completed really these 3 phases, and we're building over here. A phase is a lot, has its own well, has its own septic. The wells, as Rebecca had said, were drilled, I think it was roughly 2000, really a long time ago. And believe it or not, they're drilled in the middle of the friggin' wetlands.
Yeah.
So we've used 1, 2, 3. We were prepping up to use this well, and Skilling's our supplier. He's like, it's just too deep with all the water that we had. It's, these are in, a couple of feet of water. This is in like 6 feet of water. He's like, we're really uncomfortable going out to do anything with it. We're uncomfortable, even if it's a little higher now than it would be with all the rain, but overall, from a long-term perspective, we didn't think it was a reasonable solution to leave for residents. So what we'd like to do is to drill the new well for them, for one of the lots. And we're able to find a location on the lot, outside the septic, outside the tank, outside the driveway areas, but it is within the buffer zone. It's in an area that we've already disturbed. It's outside the 25-foot zone, so this is really a section that was going to be a lawn area in general. So we're seeking for, I guess, a temporary time to install it. This well, to make it more complicated, the property lines are somewhat, jury-rigged to make it work for the site. So this well was supposed to service these 6 houses, which are now under construction, where it's on the lot. That's the well that we're uncomfortable using. So we're actually going to be going to the ZBA to make a little change in the lot line to put the well on, to put it on this lot, and that's why we're locating it on this lot, in case that seemed confusing. So this will be a minor change with an A&R plan for the ZBA, which we'd be doing on, I think, the 19th. So ultimately, they need to approve this change. They also need to approve a waiver for the well in proximity to the property line, although it's essentially what we have. It just, because they were already located, they approved the plan, they didn't issue specific waivers.
Right,
So,
right.
So what the hope is if this is something that the board is comfortable with, you could provide a letter to the Zoning Board of Appeals saying that you're okay with us putting a well there. so that we're not in the position that we don't have a well to service people. And then that would also be used for the Board of Health as well, so they understand that we've communicated with you. This well, where it's located, what we've requested to the Board of Health and requested for you guys, we prefer not to abandon the well. It could have use as either an irrigation well if need be, or if push came to shove, because the site is dense and things, it's certainly it can be a productive well if whether the weather was better or whatever it is. But for an emergency situation, having access to the well, we figured would provide a benefit to the property going forward. So the Board of Health.
So
that's
at
something
this
that
point
they
in
need to
time,
consider.
Skilling says they can't drill the well, or?
The well's already
launch it?
drilled.
Oh,
Yeah,
okay.
all we would really need to do is go out, sink a pump, and connect the wiring. And there's even conduit is run for the wiring. So we could do it, but if there's an emergency and we're dealing with a situation, it's not really suitable. They're not comfortable dealing with it. That's where the problem started. They're out in waders of a couple of feet. It's not a big deal. He's like, I can't walk out to this thing because it was literally
6
5.5
feet tall.
feet.
Yeah.
So they weren't comfortable with it. We could wait, but ultimately, how long, when it would be good, we don't want to have to worry about dealing
So the
with
well
it.
is basically gonna stay active, it's just you.
It's not being utilized, no, there's not a
But
pump
the-
in it
but
now.
the-
So
Pipe
there will
bill.
be, there's a hole drill, but
So there's a
no-
pipe down
there'll be
there.
no pump to it.
Right.
Yeah, it's capped, and we'll have to,
Right.
we're requesting that from the Board of Health, their permission to allow it to stay active. Not active, but not be abandoned.
Right, okay. I see
Initial
what's going on.
conversations with the health agent, Bill Brookings, said, he thinks it's okay, but I'll be meeting with the Board of Health next week as well, to try to, just get everybody on the same page, understanding the issue, and seeking the necessary approvals, so we're doing everything with everybody's blessing and in the proper order.
So the question, I guess, boils down to, A, does the commission see this as suitable for the site? B, would it be a field amendment, or would it be in a more formal amendment by amendment to the notice of intent?
Good questions. All right, as far, and again, just for me, as far as its suitability goes, it would seem to make sense to me. Again, I think this is gonna be pre-existing lawn right now, right? So it's,
Right now, it's pre-existing dirt, yeah.
just the idea that in the future, if there is a problem with the well and somebody needs to go out and service the well, I'd rather them service the well on their front lawn than service the well in the middle
8 feet of
of
water,
6
6
feet of
inches of ice.
wetland. Right, I'd rather future everything being done there. So to that extent, I can see why it would be necessary. I can see why it would be an improvement to existing plans. The only two things I would say, it makes sense to me not to abandon the well, just to leave it capped and untapped in case they ever need it for emergency purposes. But what scares me is you said irrigation too, and I kind of want to put that in there, that no, it's an emergency thing. If something fails and they really want to retap that well, that's fine. But if they're planning to use that well at all, then there's really no reason to drill this well. Let's use that well. And if they need to drill this well, let's not use that well unless it's a total emergency. Just for that reason, I'd rather nobody go out there to service it or try to connect it or deal with it at all. And I'm sure the same. But
Yeah, no, we feel the same.
I just kind of want to make that clear that it's strictly for emergency purposes. It's not going to be for a sprinkler system or a lawn system or something else getting attached to it, or a different pot of houses in the future. That this is an emergency backup and solely an emergency backup. That's one thing I want to see in there.
Fair enough.
As far as, and again, I'll ask Rebecca on this one too, as far as making an addition to the order of conditions, again, I can see this as an improvement and doing as a field amendment there, but when it's something as big, and in my mind, it's big where you sink the well on a property, especially with when something as significant as where the well is going to be located, it almost seems to me like that would make sense to
Do a more formal.
do it in a more formal way without, and again, it might be one to research too, because again, it may simply be a field amendment is fine. It's gonna be on the as-built as where it is, and maybe that's perfectly fine. I'm just not sure I haven't encountered something like this before with switching like a well location.
I would agree with you. You know, keep it for emergencies. If they're gonna use it, use it. They're not.
If we need to use it, use it.
Yeah.
Don't
Yeah.
use it to.
I mean, if one of the other wells fails, but I don't know whether, I don't know what the probability of anything like that is, but
I don't know.
I don't either. You know, there seems to be a lot of water around these days, but
And if
That's
one
on
fails,
the
it's
surface.
probably just as easy to fix them whichever one fails than it is to restart the new one.
Yeah.
But anyway,
It's just a pump.
yeah,
Right.
exactly.
Yep.
But,
I don't know the process, what the best process would be. I'd have to leave that up to Rebecca to guide that.
Well, it's up to the commission. I can only provide guidance.
That's
and
what
then the
we're-
commission has to either take a
That's-
poll or say.
That's all I was
No, you
suggesting.
can come back.
I would think we could definitely provide a letter saying that we have seen the plans, and that
You're okay.
we generally agree with it, that this is an improvement, we understand the need for it. We appreciate the fact that nobody's gonna be working in the middle of the wetlands to service or install the well.
With the exception of we're not gonna use the other one.
Yeah, but, and then as far as, can it just be a field amendment, or are we gonna ask to have the order of conditions reopened? Maybe that's just some quick, go ahead.
So, just sort of to clarify, you can't reopen the order of conditions once the public hearing is closed, you can't
Yeah.
reopen it. So you'd be filing an abbreviated notice of intent. That's basically, that's what I mean by an amendment to the order of
I see what you're
conditions.
saying, yeah.
Oh, so we can't just amend the order? You can't, it's like being a little bit pregnant, you're kind of all.
But I mean, it's,
But I'm gonna respectfully request it's a field change.
yeah, no, which, I think we can do.
And I can interrupt,
You- no, go
I can
ahead.
have the engineer, provide a plan for what we're gonna do, for protecting around it.
Yeah,
So I assumed that we would do that depending on however it was, I wanted to,
Yes.
instead of having them do it, I wanted to see exactly what the board would want. But I can have them, prepare a plan for,
Yeah.
hay bales and where they're gonna put
Right, how they're gonna-
put a hole for stuff, for that process. So I'm more than happy to do that. Ideally, if it could be at Rebecca's acceptance and jurisdiction, then I can communicate with her. If we could do it as a field change, just because, this just happened like a week
Right.
ago, and I'm trying to get everybody, it's gonna be the 19th with the ZBA, the Board of Health. I'm meeting with them, whether they'll approve it. I just, I don't wanna be in January if I can avoid it, to try to get it in, so. But I wanna make sure you guys got the information that you need and that you're comfortable with it too, so.
when is our next meeting?
Good question.
We have to figure that out.
Okay, so first question is,
Sorry,
do we
sorry.
want to have another meeting in November, or do we want to just wait until December? Because as we get into the winter months, typically we don't see as many filings. I only have one, which is a request for a request for an extension for a next meeting, whenever that is, and then we have some continuances. But aside from that, we don't have any
Yeah.
new.
How quick can you put the
Projects.
plan together? Your
Oh,
engineer.
Well, I would imagine
Tomorrow.
it's a detail, it's probably a standard detail in putting it on a plan, I don't expect that to be complicated. So I can have the plan, if you needed it tomorrow.
Well,
I'm sure
I
can have to
just-
get it tomorrow, but.
You're concerned about doing this in January or February, I mean.
Yeah, I guess
If we haven't, and the problem is, we talked about having a meeting in December as opposed to,
Well, so that's
because
why
of the
we
holiday.
would make, one way or another, the commission should poll whether it needs to be a field amendment or an abbreviated notice of intent tonight. So just a poll, so then we know how to proceed, and either way, Mark will be providing us with plans associated with the installation process, which will include erosion and things like that. So, in my mind, and it doesn't seem that it would impede it one way or another in terms of the time frame, but that's, up to the commission and Mark to determine. That's just my thought on it. I don't think whether we have a second meeting in November, or if we have one meeting in December, because of the poll's gonna happen tonight, so it doesn't.
Yeah, no, I was just curious to see if we were able to look and research how we've handled the past, or if we can ask that
Oh,
question
okay,
to some.
gotcha.
Whereas, like I said, we're moving a well, again, with everything I'm hearing tonight, I could totally see it as a field amendment, especially with us getting the as-built. But then, it's not so much a precedent, but then, at what point where it's like, yeah, we're gonna shift where the well is, that can be a field amendment, like, maybe that's something that we really need to address in a more formal way, especially going down the road as other projects come forward. That's my only question. I'd like to see if we can find in the past, like, how other towns have done it, and I'm sure it could be a mixed bag. People could be like, we're fine with this, we're fine with that, we're fine with this, yeah. I guess that's the only thing I give pause for is I'm just not sure which way to go with that.
Sure.
Any?
No, I was just looking at the dates.
Okay.
I'm good with whatever recommendation Rebecca's
I
going
would
to make
suggest,
on
but
how to
one
do
is
the process.
in the wetlands and one is outside.
Yes,
the wetlands.
yeah, no, it's definitely.
That's a really good idea.
It's definitely an improvement, it's just a question of how to file for it.
It's just a recommendation from
Legalese.
Rebecca on what kind of process we need to move this forward. Whether it's
Well, either-
an adjustment to this thing, or whether we just drill, maybe drill, I don't know.
Unfortunately, on this, I really don't have
Instead
a
of being like that, yeah.
good guidance one way or another, and good guidance meaning I see an argument either way. Because if it were outside any jurisdictional area, I'd say, yep,
Yes.
it's a field amendment. I don't see any problems that could become jurisdictional from drilling a well within that area,
If it was
but,
outside of jurisdiction.
if it's outside.
If it's outside the 100-foot buffer.
right, so it'd
Yeah, it would
be
be.
100% clear, and it'd be fine.
Right, yeah, it would be really.
That would be a field adjustment to the order
Yeah.
of conditions, I wouldn't even come and talk to you.
Right.
And if I had a place, quite frankly, I looked over here, but there's a septic system over here, and looked at the property line. So we did try to locate an area that was outside of the buffer zone, but we really ended up with proximity either here, both, or back here, I'm sorry, both of which had the same proximity, and this area was less disturbed. So I figured this area, I figured with the engineers and stuff, we figured that this area was probably, it's accessible, it's essentially graded, it's just, right now, it's disturbed because we're running lines and doing everything. So I genuinely didn't see it as, it's not even really a temporary impact, since it's impacted as we speak.
It's outside the 25-foot, right?
We're outside the 25-foot, so all our hay bales and silt and all that, irrigation control is already there. And then we obviously will provide, we would provide the detail for what we do to protect, for the actual drilling and stuff related to that. For submittal to Rebecca for her approval prior to doing the install. So that would be the request, with it being a field change, with Rebecca approving the plan, before we went ahead and did anything. And she can inspect that as well, as part of the plan.
Is it an improvement? I mean,
Yeah, I was gonna say, I guess the argument would be, it's not an improvement because the other well's already dug, but they not going in the 6 feet of wetlands, of water basically, to install the pump and set everything up there, and instead put it where it's gonna be grass lawn right now, basically. I could see that as an improvement, it would definitely be an improvement if they were proposing to dig the well in the wetland. Now that it's already dug, I mean, you can make the argument either way. Yeah. It would seem to me that, again, servicing it, anytime you have to fix it, if something goes
But it's
wrong with the pump, you
basically-
gotta clear it out. It's a lot better long-term here
It's in a
than,
better location.
yeah.
Yes, but it
I
is
can
a
agree
new
with
well.
that.
It is a new well that has to be dug.
So I mean, if we, it is a new well, right? And the problem is the safety of the other one.
Right, or just, yeah.
And just the location of the other one too, it's in the way.
It's, like, if you ever went out on site when we first saw
I'd
it.
rather not spend the money and build a new well.
Yeah,
Yeah, no, I'm sure you wouldn't, yeah.
I agree.
I think my first comment was, can't you float it out there?
No, the first time we went out on a site, you can see where, like, it starts to get wet and it starts to get deeper, the big puddle out there. Where's the well? Like, it's out right around the middle of the pond there. And you're
The first time that I went, I think,
really, like, out in the middle of the, yeah.
I think it was the third time I was
out.
out there when I first
Yeah.
found the furthest well. I'm
What?
like, are you kidding me?
Yeah, I don't know how or why.
I think they were drilled around, I'm gonna say it was roughly 2000. Oh, 2000.
I was not here. I don't know.
I wasn't here.
I was third grade.
No idea.
I'm staying out of that one.
Yeah.
I think it was roughly that time frame. That's what I recall from looking at old records, so.
So we understand it's an improvement, we understand where he wants to put it right now, it's under construction now, there's nothing there but gravel anyways, right? And there's hay bales and
Yeah, and if it was a field improvement, I was gonna say, you work with Rebecca to work for conditions for the site, so they would, basically Rebecca would go out and check and make sure proper erosion controls were in place up to
sounds
what our
like
standard
they're
would
there
be.
right now, right?
Right,
Yeah, there are existing erosion controls that are in good condition in place.
and again, everything, on our original order, it shows that basically anything that gets done, when everything's done, we get back a final as-built that shows where everything did end up going.
Yeah, and everything has been surveyed.
So
as we
the
go,
issue
so.
then right now is how-
Field or formal amendment, because it sounds like everyone's remotely okay with the location.
Right.
So that's the outstanding.
Not to be a Debbie Downer, would you explain to me one more time why you actually need to do this just so you can avoid
The
clean,
the-
staying
No,
and maintaining that?
Really, the issue started that the well company they're not comfortable servicing the well.
Servicing well.
Yeah, and they don't want to put something in here that they're not comfortable servicing, and it becoming a situation that you've got people that are living, that are relying on the well, and it's
Something
not
else.
serviceable, because, we wait till just the right time to take care of it, and, that they're comfortable with it, but that doesn't mean that if there's a problem, it's gonna happen in the same circumstances. So,
But there are actually 2 wells out there that are running, right?
there's 3 wells that are out there that are running, and these are all.
You think they all fail at
comfortably
the same
accessible.
time?
No, I think
But
it's.
they all service different parts of the project?
They do, they service different parts of the project, and they're accessible, these two were really
Yeah,
just off the
I understand that. I
wetlands.
just was,
That was the issue, so, the reason that they were clustered this way before is that this, previously was a community water supply. So that creates, you had to have a certain radius around them, so you move them far enough away, they gotta be on the property, and so now, they're not community water supply, so we don't have the same requirements that they did. So we have more flexibility to be able to move it.
but the main reason that you're moving is to avoid having to service those under extreme conditions.
Yeah, we're gonna be gone. So the main reason that we're doing it is so if,
So the
we're aware of the problem, and if there's a problem in the future, they're gonna come back and hang around our neck. And just good practice. If they're uncomfortable servicing it now, we don't wanna be in a situation that there's an emergency for residents, and they don't have the means or the ability to take care of it, when we can address it today for a reasonably modest cost. After later, when all this stuff is built and you gotta try to get rigs in here and do this, they do a ton of damage of trying to get in there. Right now, we can do it, it's not prohibitive, and we thought, it's a good practice for the people in fairness, and, it's also a liability for us going forward that we don't wanna be concerned about.
But there has to be another well, right?
I think
They
that's
can't
it, we
just, they can't
think.
just share the ones that are already there.
No, not based on the regulations, yeah. We tried that too.
Yeah.
Well, I understand you'd rather not spend the money. I was just
Yeah.
asking the reason
Yeah.
why.
But that fundamentally the reason is that servicing is an issue that could affect the residents, and,
You know, I'll leave them holding it back.
we don't wanna leave them holding the bag, and we don't.
Can you go over the 2 options we have to us right at this point? I mean, how do we handle it? One is.
Well, you have 3 options. One, you say no, and you're gonna keep or you're gonna create the active well that's in place, not created, but use that, which they're comfortable with servicing, so it doesn't really make much sense, to me anyways. And then the other two options are related to keeping what's proposed right now, which is install a new well, keep that one active but not in use, and either do a field, consider this a field amendment, just as we discussed. He'll send me the engineered, or the information and details associated with the installation process, erosion controls and protection, or it's an amendment, which would be an abbreviated notice of intent, which would constitute another public meeting associated with that one item. So those are your options. So deny, or keep A, which is field amendment, or keep B, which is abbreviated notice of intent.
I will say, I think I'm somewhat leaning field amendment. My concern about moving a well, you can understand, but a lot with our wells and septic comes down to Board of Health. It seems like they're more of the overarching governing body on this, and it's something that I'm sure they need to look at too and approve too.
I'll be in this room
It's got
next week.
all of their standards,
Yeah.
and they have to worry about public health and safety too, which is their top concern.
So if we're concerned with wetland protection, right, this is outside the 25-foot
Local bylaw jurisdiction.
local bylaw.
Right.
But it's within the adjacent upland resource
Yeah.
area, which is 75 feet from that, under the local bylaw. And then, under the Wetlands Protection Act, it's within the 100-foot buffer zone.
So really, all we need is a field thing. We don't need a whole brand.
We can go either way, I mean, that therein lies the
Yeah.
question. And I think I lean field amendment, but
I'm
I'm okay with that too.
okay with that too.
Bill, thoughts?
Yeah, I'm okay with that.
You're
too.
awfully signed.
yeah, it's perfectly fine.
So drill thing.
Can I make a motion?
I'm so, oh, you're not a voter.
Well, I was gonna say-
I'm not.
It's not a motion because we would just basically poll the committee, right?
Which is what you just did.
Okay, and it was to say, you can take those unofficial poll results.
Okay, so you will provide me with, well, once you hear from the Board of Health, provide me with details associated with the installation of the new well. Yeah.
And the prior installation, we can have you come out and inspect
Super.
erosion,
Okay.
additional erosion measures. Okay. And if it is possible, if you could provide a memo that I could utilize for the Board of Health.
Yeah, that
and
just
for the
states
ZBA
this conversation.
that we spoke, and the Board of Health, I'm scheduled 6:45, 11:13, so, yeah, I guess next.
Yeah,
Yeah,
six
next
weeks.
Tuesday.
I can get the
Today's the
letter
sixth,
tomorrow,
right.
so.
If you could, that'd be terrific, okay.
Yeah.
And I'll probably, I may have the engineer, if I have, I don't think that the Board of Health is gonna require anything beyond that, so I'll probably get the plan put together this week and send it over to you.
Sure.
That way, if you look at it and you think it's fine, then I can communicate that to the other parties if that's what they do. So
Yeah.
it's a pretty straightforward.
Okay.
Terrific, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Do you want a copy of this plan, or just copies of the plan?
You can just give me a
with
copy
it?
of this and then the other plan as well at the same time.
Okay,
That's totally fine.
terrific. All right, thank you very much, I appreciate your
Thanks,
consideration.
Thank you.
Yeah, do you have a,
Have a great night.
Thank you.
Oh,
yeah, actually, all I have to do is say continue, right? It's not.
you have
under
to
the-
continue each one.
Yeah, but it's not under
individually.
Mass General Law, right? I can just
Jeff
say
did a really
that.
good job.
I did it, I did that last week.
You do have to do it.
Do I?
Well,
Wanna do it again?
I'll just
You're
Sorry,
here,
we're good at this.
it's your baby.
Wait, we have to, so when's the meeting? Because in order to continue.
Oh,
we have
yes,
to
yes,
know
yes.
when the meeting date is.
I heard of December over here. I just know in November, sometimes we have trouble getting members too, depending.
It's like the Tuesday
We
before
don't need
Thanksgiving,
to,
right?
we don't need to
Yes.
discuss, we don't have to have him come back in a week or two or something like that.
No.
Because he needs the time, so he's free, so December is good with me.
So it'd be the
Forth?
4th of December.
The next question is, do we want to have 2 meetings or 1 meeting in December?
I love meetings.
So it'd be the 4th and then the
18th,
21st.
4th and the 18th.
It'd be the 4th and the 18th.
Or the 18th.
So when is the Conservation Christmas party? When is that?
The 4th and the 18th.
The 4th.
So
And
we
then the 18th.
can we just schedule one and then like if a ton of work comes in, we could say, okay, we need another one?
We can do
Okay.
that. It's just, so in order to reserve the space, it's helpful for me to say whether we actually, so say today, the commission says we don't want another meeting in November, we'll do one in December.
But we'll do one November,
So this is the one in November.
right.
One in
Probably
December.
2 in December makes sense.
Well, maybe,
Well, if we
so
got
what
the
I'm
work.
saying is,
We don't know if we have enough work.
we don't even know if we'll have anything.
To discuss for the second meeting.
Well, there's always things to discuss, but yeah, if it's something priority for that second meeting, but I still need to reserve the space in the event that we do. And typically, over the winter, in December, January, we don't, but some people are very forward-looking, and we do. So,
So we are forward.
Brian's the expert on this.
Oh, I'm no expert on this.
You reserve the space, but we don't plan any
That's-
meetings at this
Do
point.
we get charged for it?
Okay, so we want to reserve it for December 4th
4th and 18th.
and 18th,
Right.
not plan on the 18th.
Not plan on the 18th, but hold the space for now.
Okay.
Because I think, too, by the meeting on the 4th, depending on who's here for commission members, they'll have a good idea of, well, A, we'll have a good idea on workload, but B, also people around. That's the other one with the December is sometimes 2 weeks from now, half the commission realizes that they can't make it to that mid-December one because they've got family commitments or this or that. And it's been a mess in the past. I think even the selectmen dropped to like 1 meeting a month.
They do
for
it in
December,
summer,
January, or
because that's
summer,
when they're
that's right.
slow. They actually go up
Go away.
this time. Looking for it.
Thank you.
Nope. I have it for each of these. So the date.
Your job's to see if you can find Pine Hill down.
See if I can find it?
Yeah.
The date
I don't know what Pine
and
Hill
time
is.
will have to change, and then for the
Like,
last
just a town meeting?
We'll just-
one, it's an
see if we can get
RDA,
some
but the rest of it
GIS
is
or something like that.
Gotcha.
Pine Hill on it.
So you just have to continue, you don't have to open.
Yes. All right, are we ready?
Ready.
Can I just open them all right in a row? Boom, boom, boom.
They're already open, so all you
Ah,
have to do is
Continue them all right in a
motion to
row.
continue.
All right, the Bolton, well, do I need to
Say it for each.
open and then continue? Right?
They're
Real?
already open.
So I just need to make a motion to continue? All right. I'd like to make a motion to continue the notice of intent for 21 Century Mill Road improvement, proposed improvements to existing driveway till our next meeting, December 4th at 7,
I would say 7:15.
at 7:15 PM. Do I hear a second?
Second?
All those in favor? Aye. I'd like to make a motion that we continue the public hearing for the notice of intent for Lot 3 Century Mill Road until our next meeting, December 4th, 2018 at 7:20. All those in favor? Or do I hear a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
I'd like to make a motion that we continue the public hearing for Lot 4 Century Mill Road until our next meeting, December 4th, 2018 at 7:25 PM. Here a second.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
And I would like to continue our public hearing for the request for determination of applicability for Lot 2 Century Mill Road until our next meeting, December 4th at 7:30 PM.
Second.
All those in favor? So continue. You do that back.
How many continuations does somebody get?
It was gonna be a question I had, and maybe I can ask Rebecca now, but I know we're running behind on time too.
Yeah.
At least get us out of here by now.
Anyway.
Any interesting mail?
Nope, aside from a reminder about what the fees will be for MACC membership, but that's for the next fiscal year. They just sent it early because municipal budget, they know you go through the hearing process.
Can we get more money for training?
For next year, I am going to try.
Thank you, Rebecca. I already got my reimbursement check, so thank you. Straight from the town, like in a week. That's amazing.
Excellent.
Yeah.
That's because you submitted it right in time. That doesn't always
Yeah,
happen,
you gotta
sometimes
hit
it's 2 weeks. So that sort of brings us into, I included in your packets a draft of review projection of capital expenditures or unique expenditures. I'm calling them unique expenditures because not all of them meet the criteria for a capital expenditure that's defined in our budget. That's reviewed during the budget hearing process. Again, this is a draft. One of the items that was in the previous draft was obviously the Fifeshire structure, which has now been completed, so that's off the table. I am including it in as we request funds because we did have the funds, we did expend the funds, but now that makes everything tight for the rest of the year, so it was an unexpected expenditure. We were able to do it this year, but it's pushed off some of our land maintenance projects. So for instance, Bower Springs, a flow device needs to be replaced. It's gonna be about $1,000. We'll put that request in so it's done this summer, but that's something we could have done this year had we not done the Fifeshire. But again, that was an unexpected cost as well. We had Beaver Solutions go out and assess and maintain those flow devices throughout the various properties, and that's what they determined was an issue for Bower Springs. It's great. He's a very interesting individual that does it, but he's very knowledgeable about everything to do with them. So it's very interesting to.
It's a great job.
Yeah.
Get paid for that.
Yeah. So I don't know if there's any questions or anything we want to add. I know last time Brian, I think, brought up that we would like to add one trailhead a year that would be associated with parking and just any regrading if necessary. So I did include that in this draft. So it has been updated slightly. But I didn't know if anyone else had any thoughts of sort of bigger, larger scale projects, I guess.
No.
No, I mean, I will continue to think. I appreciate getting this to,
Yeah, yeah.
because it gives me another chance to review through it. And you did an amazing amount of work to get to this point, I will
So
say.
which parking thing are you talking about, Bower Springs?
So all of them.
All of them?
So the priorities
Okay.
in my mind would be the larger, most used parking area, so Bower Springs would be number one. Another one would be potentially Rattlesnake off of 117. And then Fifeshire doesn't need too much work to the entryway now though.
Green Road.
Green Road, yep, that's another one. Moen could use some updates, that's pretty.
Moen just needs to be flattened, there's one.
Yeah, it needs to be graded.
Graded, and there's one big tree that needs to come down, because it's gonna come down
Yeah.
in the middle of the night,
Yeah, when
or in the middle of the day.
Or
when
when we
the cars
choose,
run.
yeah.
So we do.
And I can't handle that one, but I could, but
Prioritize
I'm
that
not sure.
one. The other item was another trail reroute that we didn't touch upon last time. It was included in the emails, actually two. So the first is one's on trust property, and they're going to need to cross Great Brook with a bridge. And the question is the same as last time. Does it need an RDA, or are we okay just
Right.
being okay with the crossing?
I'm okay with the crossing. I have a picture of it here if you want to see it.
Yeah, and this is the dimensions as well.
The actual bridge.
Yeah, this is what's there now.
Yeah, no, it's, Rebecca.
That's only,
That's the temporary one before the actual.
Well, that's at Vaughn Hill, not
That's
at.
at Vaughn Hill.
I'm talking about Great Brook.
Well, we
This
put
is
it
on the
down there
Skinner
so to
property
keep
behind
people from
environmental
walking.
pools.
Thank
On
you.
the one, so this is 117.
That's,
Gotcha.
And it
Yeah.
extends into the
So when you
rattlesnake
guys
property.
were making a trail, did you actually dig it in? Is that what they were doing?
yeah, they were digging, they were flattening it on the hillside.
And after you flatten it,
And then
So
that.
the trails
does it
all
fall
upland,
back?
it's just across.
Yeah,
So
no,
they
they
cut in the trail.
Hold it right in here, and then
Untrucked
this
land,
is,
so I
Yeah.
and
said,
we've got a sense of the water
The
will
commission
flow
doesn't weigh in
down
on
through
that.
here into
Um,
different spots. But they flattened it right here, so it flattens out,
I
and
just
then
want
it
to say
bends around,
with
and
these,
so the water
So
will.
that kind of helps.
I almost
with
want to
the
throw it
erosion
for it all.
issues.
You can see how they did it.
That when it comes to trails,
Yeah.
Compostable
the volunteer land.
Just leave it the way it is,
things.
they tamped it down.
Wow, this
Leave it
should,
the way it was.
this is an RDA, you know, this
That's
is
what
really.
dirt looks like.
Basically-
That's what the guys do.
Yeah,
The
or the
reindeer.
volunteer land street sense.
They tamp it down,
Okay,
they
no, I
did,
can
we
see
played on
putting
some
that
hip hop
bridge
music,
across
and they
here.
all danced
Okay.
around.
I think that's probably a good way for us to go on these.
Like some
I
two
would-
box or something?
so
See,
the-
but-
The second property is
What?
Annie
You
Moore.
don't
We
cover
had a
it when you-
proposal
when you pull all
from
that leaf
potential
No,
Eagle
they
Scout.
don't.
I had emailed everyone the
Yeah,
pictures
the
of
leaves
it,
are-
so they
The
want to
leaves are
install
gonna cover it.
kiosks,
No, the
which
leaves are gonna-
I
it's all
think
packed
is
down.
great.
It'll
I
cover
have
it.
no
It's
issue
like
with
this
it.
other one, yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
I'll pack down
And
pretty
then
hard. I mean,
And then it'll come up.
and the rain
with,
came down, packed it
proposed
down.
a
and
bridge.
eventually
But then they also proposed to strengthen the bridge that's already there. Prioritization-wise, I think strengthening the
Until
bridge
it was the trail.
is
Well, there was a trail there that just made.
needed, it's
a little
necessary,
safer
same thing as the
bikers.
kiosk, and
Horses, they're talking about putting
it's
horses
something
on
that
there.
people use.
Yeah, we took that
Yeah.
initiative.
Used.
Yeah.
The other is
You could get
proposed in an area
chainsaw
that a
machine
trail is
shop
cut in.
around here.
Robinson's,
and Where it's cut in
Where's
is basically
Robinson's?
Hudson,
with an area that.
the hardware store.
Valley.
Hudson, right in the
Well,
center.
not
hardware
valley,
store?
but
They actually go
topography.
shopping.
One
Right,
is,
right.
Just find it.
It tends
go
to be
sharpen
wet.
it.
Hardware
We have
store, it's called, what is
precipitation or
it?
in the springtime, but outside
Robinson's
of that,
hardware store.
it's relatively dry.
Want to close the meeting?
We're still.
Possibly.
I don't know.
Actually, like,
Seven or eight.
Talking over here about stuff.
That's fine, no, that was good, because I volunteered you for a lot of stuff, and I'm not even kidding about that.
So if you want me to just ask, tell Jeff
Yeah, but
Oh.
when he just get volunteered, no, go ahead.
about the Annie Moore one too, that's. him.
Yeah, if he, yeah, if he's willing to go take a look.
What's going on?
What I intimated to Rebecca, for a lot of times when it comes to trail reroutes or bridges on trails,
Right.
that I think what's probably best is we have this volunteer land steward position, and to go with the
Which is
recommendation of the volunteer land steward, that if they go out and they think this is pretty substantial, I think
Yeah.
you're gonna need an RDA, or if they go out and think, yeah, this bridge makes a lot of sense, I'm fine
Yeah.
with it here.
No.
And just go with their recommendation rather than,
I tried to do that.
yeah,
You know, I don't, my thought was, as volunteer land steward, is not to dampen the enthusiasm of the people who are out there doing all the work, because we have a lot of people that like to do a lot of work,
yes, I do,
and they like to just go out and do it
yes.
sometimes,
That's a
and
really good thing.
that's really a good thing, and you
Yep.
don't wanna change it, but you don't want to overstep what's
Yes.
going on.
Mhm.
So, I tried to get involved in that.
That's why we.
So
that's
They were
what-
talking about
like
that, just to
Jeff
give you an
will
idea.
assess
Huh?
Yeah,
and approve or
Yeah.
not, and then fill it in.
What?
I think that's.
I
so
said,
you
it
will
sounds like
assess.
you are going to assess the Skinner property.
And you are going
Great Brook,
to, and we're going to approve.
And you are going to approve and then update the commission on.
No.
Yeah.
That's what the chair just
Oh, yeah.
suggested.
Oh, it
Yes.
is?
So we can take a
Yes.
poll.
We will take a
Yes.
poll based on your recommendation.
Oh,
Yes.
fine. I don't have a problem with that.
Okay.
All right, this is good.
I second that motion.
I thought that was my job, but I was trying to
It
make
is your job,
sure.
yeah.
It is, yeah.
I don't.
We are,
No, you're good.
we're trying to further empower you in your job, how about that?
Does that include the pay raise?
Yeah, we're gonna,
Yes.
we're gonna double your salary again, yeah, yeah.
Awesome, huh?
Okay,
It's amazing, it's amazing.
anything
how much
else
money I-
outstanding currently?
Not that I can think of.
See, that's what the trail will end up looking like. See, this was dug out, and the leaves that fell on over the last thing just fall on top of this thing, and eventually it won't be muddy, it'll just be, and we took that tree out. That thing was leaning over and that thing came down like a crash. Anyway, anybody want to
pictures,
see?
all right.
Plenty of pictures I could deal with.
But do you have recommendations for,
Nothing right now.
conservation themed Halloween costumes for next year?
No, I don't.
Are you sure?
I don't, like, we can all go as trees.
All right, that works. All right.
I mean, we should all volunteer for the Halloween thing dressed as
As
those trees.
All right, we'll make sure we write that down.
We become,
If you could write up a proposal on that, we will take that up.
I think we should
Next
start a
meeting.
foraging club. One of the things they're
Oh,
talking-
I'll lead the foraging club.
one of the things they talked about at the Trails Committee meeting the other day was that they're gonna have a badge. They're talking about putting together a badge that we're gonna give to anybody who does all of the trails.
Oh, nice, yeah.
All 45
Like the
miles.
4,000 footers on the,
Like,
yeah.
only the Bolton 45.
I think that's a great idea.
In a day?
I would be.
No,
No,
not
no,
a day.
Yeah.
Over,
Whatever.
whatever.
Yeah, I can share a story about that, which I'll show you afterwards. All right.
We're gonna put you in charge of that one.
Great.
As my newfound power of the volunteer land steward, I'm gonna, no, it's gonna be my assistant.
All right.
And I'm gonna triple your salary.
So, before you do that, though, I'm gonna make a quick motion that we hereby close the November 6, 2018 meeting of the Bolton Conservation Commission.
Second.
All right, all those in favor?
I
So-
don't know,
Well, that's all right. You can go there. 3-1, we're closing. Good.